Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to today's Economy, Infrastructure and Communities meeting. Today's date is the 24th of October and the time is 10 o'clock. We'll get straight onto the agenda. Apologies. Jacob.
Good morning, Chair. No apologies received from Councillor Philippa Hayden.
Thank you. Everyone else appears to be here. Yes. Any declarations of interest from members? Take the silence as a no. Item 3, minutes of meeting held on the 26th of September. Charlotte, I know you were here, but you...
Yeah, I was here. I asked questions. I'm not on the attendance list. I would like to be. Thank you.
Can we just amend that, Jacob? Charlotte was at the last meeting, but her she was knocked down as attending. Anything else from the minutes, or can we sign those off as a true record of attendance? Sign those off then. '24. And we'll move straight on to item 4, which is the HS2 6-monthly update, impact on and opportunities for Staffordshire, and obviously we're focusing on economy, training and skills. Over to you, Sophia.
Good morning all. So I am Sophia McCain. I'm the Interface and Engagement Manager for Mainline North, working for HS2. And I'm joined today by colleagues Matt Price, who's the Agricultural Liaison and Engagement Specialist for Mainline North, working for BBV, who are our construction partner on the works in this area, and Cam Hundle, who's the Skills, Engagement and Employment Business Partner, also working for Balfour Beatty Vinci. If we move on to the next slide, please. Oh, I've got the clicker, I'll do that. So in terms of phase 2, my colleague Wenda from HS2 cannot join us today, but I'm going to provide an update for phase 2. The update isn't any different to the update provided at the last meeting. So last year, at about this time in October 2023, the government announced the cancellation of phase 2 of the railway. Following the general election in July, we're in the early stages of working with the current new government, and the update does not differ from the previous update which has been communicated to this group. Once the government and the DfT communicate how HS2 are to proceed on phase 2A, we will provide an update and engage with members. Moving on to the update for skills, education, employment and the supply chain. I'll now hand over to Matt, who will provide that update.
Yeah, so good morning, my name is Matt. I'm part of the engagement team at Balfour Beatty Vinci, the mine works contractor. So just want to give you a little bit of an overview in terms of the works that we've been doing and that we've got coming up for the next 12 months across parts of Staffordshire. So in terms of the actual work content themselves, we'll be doing, as you can imagine, lots of earthworks, piling and structure works. As we're now at the stage where, you know, we're seeing structures, you know, appearing from the ground. You know, things are becoming real. Construction of a number of embankments around the area, the setting up of satellite compounds, and then the continuation of surveys, which is a necessity, you know, right through the construction phase, and also the dismantling of properties within the HS2 footprint. So in terms of the work areas themselves, so just starting south and working north, so we've got the A453 Sutton Road, where we've re-diverted or realigned the road, should I say, sorry, and we're going to be building an overbridge there, where the train will pass underneath the A453. So we've currently started those works there and just finishing the piling. Bangor Lane as well, we're re-diverting Bangor Lane and the train will pass underneath Bangor Lane. Again, just finishing the piling works on that asset. Watling Street, again, has been re-diverted with piling works due to start within the next few weeks. And then the A5, we had been piling there, but due to bad ground conditions, we moved our resources elsewhere onto the A38, and we're going to be returning there again within a few weeks. A51, again, we're starting construction on the overbridge there, which will, again, need the road realigning. And the reason we're doing a lot of road realignments is so we can, build a temporary road to permanent standards, move traffic onto the new alignment, so we can then build a structure to try and mitigate, the impact on communities and road users. And then we've got the well-documented works that are going on at the A38, which I'll just touch on a little bit more shortly. So that's obviously, ongoing. As you can probably see, the works as you drive past there in terms of piling, and there's a couple of structures already being completed there in terms of Fulham Wood Underbridge, etc. And then we've got works coming up on Wood End Lane, which will involve a realignment of Wood End Lane in partnership with the house builder in that area, Redrow Homes. And then we'll be starting work to widen footpaths and again realign Wood End Lane. So just moving on to the next slide, please. So in terms of the A38, again, obviously appreciate this has been quite an impactful piece of work in terms of closing southbound slip roads in Street Hay, and then obviously the northbound slip. We're now at the stage where both slip roads are open. The northbound slip was opened, I think it was the 29th, 30th of September, as you can just see on the left-hand side of that image there. And then we'll be starting construction of the asset in that area to allow the train to pass underneath the A38. So works are ongoing there. We will be having further closures of the northbound slip later in 2025, around November time, for a period of around 18 months. So again, the new arrangement there with the slip road is where we've reduced the road down to 30, and we have implemented a giveaway, which did get several complaints, but again, one of the reasons that we did it in that way was that when we were speaking to communities, they were saying, look, we need the slip road open as soon as possible. So by doing it this way and by implementing the giveaway and the slip road as it is, that allowed us to open that section of road probably a year early. So, again, we understand some of the, residents' frustrations, but like I said, we did listen, and this allowed us to open the road, a lot earlier than we would have been able to otherwise. Yeah, next slide, please. And then, obviously, we try and do as much community investment as possible. So as part of the subcontractors that we have on board, it's part of their contractual obligation that, they get involved in social value and community investment, where possible. And this is an example of it at Aluwas Tennis Club. So we had partners from L Lynch who provided plant and a driver, and then we had Cemex again who provide a lot of material and aggregates on the HS2 project, who've got a quarry, obviously in around Aluwas. So they provided about 35-40 tonnes of material. So we repaired all the pathways around the tennis court and the pathways leading to the car park. Again, I think the original plan was just to do one side of the tennis court and the pathway to the car park, but thanks to our partners and the efforts of everybody on the day, we were able to to repair the whole lot, which was quite satisfying. And it's good for us to get out there and do as much community investment as possible, because it does help to build trust. And again, it allows us to kind of give back, and I think longer term, it's this kind of thing that people will remember. So yeah, it was good for all the partners to come together. And as you can see, there's a comment from at the bottom from Philip at the tennis club, who was again quite appreciative of our efforts. So yeah, and we'll be doing, we do community investment throughout the year, but in Staffordshire we'll be doing some work with St Peter's Church in Drayton Bassett, who I believe are going to be applying for a HS2 grant, and then we'll be doing some work with the Pathways Domestic Abuse Project at Christmas, where again we did work with them last year, where they've got 2 refuges where families can go at short notice. Who are experiencing, physical or domestic abuse. So again, what we've done is we provided, Christmas presents and, toiletries, etc. for women and families in that refuge, and we'll be doing that again, this year. But, you know, one of the things we do say to parish councils, if you've got any ideas or, you know, any projects that you think we may be able to get involved in, you know, please let us know, and we'll see if we can provide any kind of resources or materials towards that. And I think that's about it from me, unless there's any questions.
So my colleague now needs to leave or to leave shortly. So if you have got any specific questions on what's just been presented with regards to community investment, the works or phase 2A, I don't know if anybody wants to ask those questions now.
David?
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Chairman. My concern is in my division where the railway goes straight through my division at Hints particularly. We seem to be creating worse and worse conditions and don't seem to be patching anything up as we go. My concern where it comes through Hints, I suspect that the HS2 traffic has caused fairly significant problems with the ford at Hints, which at times becomes impassable. And I think we need to look at that as a matter of some urgency. Also, where it comes through from Hints and starts to travel across towards Whittington, we seem to be doing more and more work, but not actually reclaiming anything. And I wondered when the reclamation was going to start, so that what we could look at is at least some greenery and start to eliminate the scar that we've got across, particularly my division, but I think that goes on through Whittington and also through all the routes that you've been talking about this morning. I think we're looking at reclamation. When are we going to start seeing things tidy up? Thank you, Chairman.
Yeah, so in terms of the last point, in terms of reclamation, so we have planted a number of trees across the route. In Whittington, I'm not sure of the exact number, but we've planted a couple of thousand trees kind of around Packington Moor. So in terms of the reclamation, so that phase will mainly come once we've finished the construction aspect of it. So once we've finished the assets, that's when we'll start the landscaping. But there has been a large volume of planting. So in Hints, for instance, I think we've planted around 38,000 trees to date in Hints, and there will be more to come. So again, I think this might be able to be a point that we can catch up on separately, where I'll try and provide some images of the completed structures and how the landscaping fits into that, because there is going to be a lot more planting that's going to be done, alongside the route. So in terms of Hints and Whittington, I can try and get numbers or images that will provide better context for that. So we have done some to date, and there is a lot more to come on completion of the assets, so the bridges, etc. And in terms of Hints, so I'm going to be meeting their parish council on the 12th of November. So again, one of the issues that we've had is that Hints was one of the paused assets from the government instruction last March, where we had to pause a number of assets, which meant that we had to basically just lock sites up and then wait for them to kind of come back online, as it were. In terms of Rookery Lane, we don't send traffic down Rookery Lane. We don't use it. So we have got a whole road that we've constructed that goes from the A453 Sutton Road and that goes all the way across Bangor Lane and all the way down to the Hints area. So the only reason we're using that at the moment is that we have got some ponds there that collect rainfall, and then we'll use for dousing the water bowser, for dousing haul roads, etc., and for dust suppression. Otherwise, we've been there cutting grass and maintaining the ecological mitigation site that we've got there. But in terms of actual access through the village, we're not going through the village or sending any staff or vehicles. But speaking to the residents on a regular basis, I think there has been an increase in terms of quad bikes and people just with a bit of an interest in terms of what's down that area. So one of the things that we've done in response to that Like I said, because it was a paused asset, it wasn't a main priority, but what we've now done is we've instructed our security team to visit that location on a more regular basis, because we were, sending security down there, but we've instructed that needs to be more regular, and we've been speaking with police and the parish council have as well, so we'll try and, monitor, any activity in that area and try and help and support as and where possible, because if quad bikers and trespassers are getting onto HS2 land, then we need to act on that as a matter of urgency, and we have already added some additional fencing on Rookery Lane, again just to try and deter any trespassers getting onto HS2 land, with quad bikes and the like. So yeah, it's a problem we've been made aware of, and we will continue to monitor and provide additional security.
Could I ask that as part of the work you're doing, I'm not suggesting for a minute that the problem with the Ford is entirely down to HS2. Weather conditions and all sorts of things that have happened since have made that a very, very much more problematic crossing. But I'd be grateful if you could have a look at that and to see whether anything that you're doing is contributing to the water flows that are going down there. We actually recently had a car swept down that was crossing the ford. I certainly in my car wouldn't attempt to go through the ford, but I'd be awfully grateful if someone would have a look at it and see if there's anything that either you've done which may contribute to that, or anything that some movement of aggregate or something that you might be doing could actually ease the problem there. That would be much appreciated. Thank you.
Yep, just to come back on that, unfortunately I did try and go through the Ford in my car, and it cost me quite a few quid to put it back on the road, so I did make that mistake. But again, I think one of the issues that happened in that location is there's some protesters in about 2 years ago that removed some weir boards from the side of the road, which has not helped in terms of eroding the side of the road, which obviously has added to water levels. But I know the Environmental Agency have visited that location on several occasions, and we've got what is called a water management plan, and that covers all the water captured on site from construction activities. So we've got 2 ponds in that location that, like I said, we use for construction activities, and we've also created some bunds as well, which then directs any water flow towards the ponds that we've got, and they are emptied on a regular basis. So I know the Environment Agency were there around 6 weeks ago, I believe it was. So we, the collection of water and water runoff is covered as part of the water management plan, and like I said, the Environmental Agency are very proactive in terms of visiting our sites and double checking these plans and making sure that we're implementing the measures that we've said that we're going to within these plans. But again, it's something that we can look at, because it is a problem. Like I said, in terms of the Ford, which I've had the misfortune of experiencing myself. Cheers, thank you.
Matt, can you just remind everybody of your email, and then people, if they have got specific issues, can email you direct?
What I will do is provide Matt's email, but also the HS2 help desk email, because it's important for HS2 that we log all issues and complaints that are coming through, and that they're managed correctly with our supply chain, so our contractors in this case, BBV. So I'll provide both email addresses to you separately, if that's okay.
That's brilliant, thank you. Any further questions from members? Crikey, you got away lightly there, Matt. I was expecting lots of questions for you. Okay, if there's no further questions, we're asked to, I hate this word, note the report so far. Have we got further slides? Sorry, carry on, Sophia.
Sorry, I just paused at the moment because Matt needed to leave, and I just wanted to make sure that any questions were directed and answered correctly. I'll now move us on to the HS2 SEF and BLEF funds. So these funds are community and environment funds and business and local economy funds, which Matt may have made reference to. So they are funds that local community projects or businesses can apply for if they are impacted by the HS2 project. All going backwards, bear with me. So the map on screen shows the areas where SEF and BLEF funding have been awarded. Specifically for Staffordshire, there are 2 new projects, so 2 projects that came on board last month, and that is for the Guild of St Mary's Centre in Lichfield. So that project is to renovate the tower, spire and bell. And then there's Lichfield Sports Centre, who have received funding or will be shortly receiving funding for cricket nets. So in the area, that is just over £100,000 of funding that has been approved. I have got details of the latest HS2 report, which hasn't yet been released. It will be released tomorrow, but it gives a wider update in terms of funds and projects and specifically statistics for Staffordshire. So far, 299 awards have been made, totalling £16.84 million on phase 1. 5 of those are CEF strategic projects, 9 of them are BLEF strategic projects, and 285 are CEF local projects. For Staffordshire specifically, between phase 1 and 2A, we've announced 34 awards totalling £1.7 million. Of these awards, 22 of them are valued at 1.23 million, and they are for phase 1 specifically. In terms of the economic update, this gives a breakdown of our supply chain, so contracts that have been awarded within the Staffordshire area. So first of all, if we look at awards made within the West Midlands, they're just over £22 billion. In terms of Staffordshire specifically, the total value of HS2 supply chain in this region is £333.25 million. If I move on to the next slide. In terms of small to medium enterprises, this gives the breakdown of the West Midlands in comparison to the rest of the UK. So in terms of the graph that's on the left-hand side of the screen, 60% of the contracts have been awarded to, sorry, I'm just looking at small to medium figures. So in terms of the West Midlands, 50% of the contracts, sorry, 60% of the contracts that, sorry, I just heard a sound, sorry. 60% of the contracts have been awarded to the West Midlands, which is the slide that's on the left-hand side. If you look at it by organisational size, I think the middle section shows, I think these are medium-sized businesses, and then the one on the right-hand side shows the small to medium-sized businesses, so the SMEs. Sorry, my slides on the screen are going the wrong direction. So if we look at the supply chain in total, and if we look at Staffordshire specifically, if you look at the screen or the graph that's on the left-hand side, you'll see that Staffordshire are ranked, I think the fifth largest, the fourth largest in terms of awards. So it shows, I think specifically for me, that a large proportion of the awards are from the West Midlands, and they are significant and critical contracts towards delivering the HS2 project. In terms of value for Staffordshire, as I mentioned before, the value is £329 million, and it represents 12% of the West Midlands contracts that have been awarded. Sorry, my slides are flicking around. In terms of the supply chain, so in terms of the total number of contracts that have been awarded in Staffordshire, there are 64 that have been awarded, but across the West Midlands in total, the total number is 466. And these are contracts that are critical to delivering major Tier 1 contracts. So these are our Tier 1 suppliers, our Tier 1 supply chain, so organisations such as BBB, and these are companies that are working for our Tier 1 suppliers, so our Tier 1 contractors in the area. For Staffordshire specifically, there are 64, and as a percentage, that represents 14% of the West Midlands. So the unique suppliers for the West Midlands, and I'll pick out specifically Staffordshire. So if you compare it to Birmingham, which is the second largest city in the UK, Staffordshire is ranked second in our supply chain. So there are 168 in the area. Staffordshire is the second largest, and as a percentage of the West Midlands, it represents 14% of the West Midlands contracts for HS2. Are there any specific questions on that? No. So I'm now going to hand over to my colleague to cover off skills, employment and education. I've gone back. Sorry. There you go.
Thank you, Sophia. I'm Cam Hundle, Business Partner for Employment and Skills at Balfour Beatty Vinci, and I'll provide you with an update on employment and skills and share some of the activity highlights within the context of the local area. The last Jobs and Skills update was presented back in March, and it was an update based on Q3's published data up to the end of December 2023. So as at the end of September, the HS2 workforce is at 881 full-time equivalents or FTEs. This gives us an overall decrease of around 40 FTEs, moving the Staffordshire total to 93. So there's been a small reduction of 5 FTEs since our last report. So the Staffordshire percentage of the total does remain fairly static, with a reduction of 0.08%, and ranking is still number 2 in the area, so that's still unchanged. Next slide, please. So this slide shows that the HS2 programme is employing across the wider West Midlands region 9,626 FTEs, and the workforce for HS2 now stands at an increase of 482 FTEs from Q3 from the wider West Midlands area, and this includes the workforce for Balfour Beatty Vinci, the Curzon Street Station construction partner, Mace Dragados, the Interchange Station construction partner, Lango Rourke, and then the Interchange Station design partner, Arup. Next slide, please. So, as a reminder, I know this slide has been shared previously, the Balfour Beatty Vinci Jobs and Skills Strategy, so this shows our strategy on a single page. Our strategy comprises 5 key pillars which set out our programme objectives. So it starts with igniting interest in STEM subjects and in inspiring our future workforce, and that's not just for us or this project, it's also for the whole sector and to serve the future pipeline of construction and infrastructure projects. And that's really key for us in terms of the skills legacy piece. So we're also accelerating and securing the skills we need through apprenticeship pathways. And 2/3 of our programme is focused on tackling worklessness issues. So we're embracing and engaging our key stakeholders and local communities to bring forward pathways to access the opportunities that we're able to bring forward on the project. And of course, with the last pillar, our support for our new entrants post-employment continues, where we develop further technical and professional expertise. Next slide, please. So the figures presented earlier contain and update the figures for Staffordshire at the end of Q2 this year. In September, we had 131 workless job starts from Staffordshire communities, which gives us an increase of 25 since the last report for the HS2 workforce. And to note that this is a lagging indicator, and outcomes are measured at 6 months sustained employment, and it won't include or reflect pipeline candidates. The increase is the same for the apprenticeship starts, where you've got an increase of 15, and again a slightly shorter lagging indicator, whereby we measure apprenticeship starts at 3 months sustained. Getting my 12 weeks and my 3 months mixed up there. Next slide, please, Sophia. So moving on to the same period and looking at the jobs and apprenticeship starts for Balfour Beatty Vinci, which again show an increase. And of the 131 that I mentioned in the previous slide, we've got 58 workless job starts within Balfour Beatty Vinci. And of the 72 apprentices recruited, 34 have come through Balfour Beatty Vinci. So we can see an increase for both of those elements from the data last reported. So looking at apprentices for the area then, so 34 people from across Staffordshire have secured apprenticeships with Balfour Beatty Vinci across a range of levels, and these include 5 people who were previously unemployed securing roles on the BBV Still Fixing and Formwork programme. So we're also encouraging our supply chain on site to bring forward those apprenticeship opportunities. I won't go into the levels, but you've got the pack, and you can see where those opportunities have come through at the various levels as a breakdown. So moving on to engagement activity then. So in terms of our expressions of interest forms that we receive regularly into our team, we've got 168 individuals from across the area submitting an expression of interest. You can see the geographical breakdown there on the right-hand side, and the majority of referrals we can see are coming from the Lichfield and Tamworth areas. And the sources of referrals in the main are outreach events where we go out ourselves or with our supply chain to engage with local residents, and also Job Centre Plus have been the primary sources of generating those expressions of interest. Next slide, please. So looking at our engagement and outreach activity, we've attended 35 events to date in the area. And that's an increase of 10 events since we last reported to you. Next slide, please. So moving on to schools engagement. Together with our supply chain, we've engaged with pupils across 30 separate events. And again, I won't go through all of those, but you can see there's a range of activity and engagement. And just to bring up a couple of examples, Maple Hall School, which is a SEND school. We're working with former students, and some of those are looking at civil engineering apprenticeships, having studied a T-level qualification hosted by our teams across Balfour Beatty Vinci. And in recent weeks, we've seen supply chain partners engage directly with HMP Warrington through the Young Offenders Institute, and again helping guide young people away from crime, through an interactive session promoting careers in construction and infrastructure, and how they can use their skills to positively benefit the wider community. So moving on to current opportunities then. So we're looking at our work experience programme for next year, and we invite Key Stage 3 work experience pupils in the summer. We've opened up applications, and we're starting to see interest build with both parents and schools who are contacting us to book places. We'd like to hear more from local Staffordshire-based pupils applying for placements, and we look forward to giving them some exposure across our sites onto the project. We're also engaging with Newcastle and Stafford College Group for T-level construction, for their T-level construction design, surveying and planning programme. And we find that supporting T-levels has given us a great pipeline for our early careers. So bringing those individuals forward from a college technical education through 50-day placements across our project, and then promoting them to apply for apprenticeship opportunities and supporting them through the process. So it's really great that we can invest over a 2-year period and bring that talent into the business. This is our latest jobs bulletin. So we deliver a programme called Recruit Local First, whereby we engage with recruitment colleagues and we look at entry-level opportunities, and we capture those and we get either exclusive opportunity to recruit to those opportunities, or at least 10 days to promote those opportunities across our talent pools, which are made up of wider West Midlands job seekers. We promote and send this bulletin out on a monthly basis across 165 organisations, which form our 417 strong email list. And you can see on the right hand side there, when I've had done a scan of area-related links and contacts, it comes through to 4 people plus a central email box. Now that QR code, again, on the right-hand side, gives you an opportunity to scan that or follow that link to sign up to our mailing list and receive this information on a regular basis. We also have our jobs posted on the HS2 jobs board through to the Careers with Our Supply Chain page as well, if you'd like to look at the wider opportunities available. So being on that mailing list, you'll receive these adverts, which are mini job descriptions for each of the roles. We take out the acronyms, we take out anything that doesn't kind of make sense to us. How can it make sense? If it doesn't make sense to us, it won't make sense to Joe Public. So we make sure we also gender decode and make sure those are gender neutral adverts as well, so we attract a wide, diverse applicant group. We'd really value your support in raising awareness and cascading this information both in terms of the jobs bulletin and the adverts, so we can increase the referrals. So do, if you have an opportunity, sign up to the mailing list or cascade that QR code and the opportunity to sign up to your local contacts in your areas. Next slide, please. So in terms of your support then to enhance that local engagement, we'd welcome your guidance on how we might enhance our efforts to raise awareness and access to our training, apprenticeship and job opportunities. I think Staffordshire's nominated jobs brokerage lead is Vicky Perry, who regularly gets sent our promotional material and also attends the quarterly HS2 jobs brokerage steering group, which is convened by HS2. So for instance, just looking at that slide, we could perhaps ring fence some paid placement opportunities to your local residents who may be facing barriers to employment. The caveat is, though, that they do need to be able to travel to us. So whatever support can be given to them to engage and enable them to do that, that would be really positive. And we're always looking for new engagement opportunities, and would also like to work with your care leavers leads to see what opportunities we can bring forward for individuals who may be in your care leavers teams or leaving care as well. So next slide, please. So I'm just going to share a few case studies with you. I won't go into them in too much detail, but behind those figures that were given to you in the earlier slides are local residents who are now working on the project, who may have accessed those opportunities through supported pathways into employment. And you've got Joseph Rogers here from ST9. He's completed his project management degree and he's enjoying contributing his skills to the works on the project, and he's encouraging others to pursue careers in planning. Next slide, please. And here you've got Leon. He came through a general operatives course at the City of Wolverhampton College. He applied for a formwork apprenticeship position, which is one of our programmes targeting West Midlands unemployed residents and job seekers. Leon's doing really well on the programme, and he completes his 9 block of training next March next year. So he'll move into his endpoint assessment phase at that point. Leon and another of our case studies are within a group of 30 apprentices that have been brought forward for formwork and steel fixing. So next, we've got Luke. He's from ST20. He's an apprentice civil engineer. He was told about the opportunity by a family friend, and he appreciates being able to see the progress on site, and he believes that this project will add significance to his CV when he looks for his future career opportunities. And then Simon Powell. So I think with Simon, he illustrates that apprenticeships are not just for young people. So as a steel fixer, he's got some previous experience in roofing, for instance, and he was recently awarded Employee of the Month in recognition for his strong performance and work ethic. Thank you. That's it from me. If there's any questions.
Graham?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for that. In terms of the opportunities, places that you have, regardless of whether it's going to be paid employment or work experience or something like that, are they all filled?
Not at all. We have lots of opportunities available.
Thank you for that. I think that should be taken up with the our employment people here. Then we should be really pushing this a lot more. Thank you. We'll look into that at our end and see what we can do.
Charlotte?
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad to see that you use a lot of women in your promotional information. How does that read through to the diversity of your workforce, both in terms of gender and ethnic minority, particularly in the building side of the project?
So, if I give you an example of our BBV Skills Academy, which we brought forward back in November 2021. It's part of, so we set up a hub with South and City College in Bordsley Green, which is near our Washwood Heath works. Through that college specifically, we're in the delivery of our 15th General Operative Programme, and that programme is a SWAP, a sector-based work academy programme in DWP terms. That enables people to get a 6 to 8 week training. They come out with Level 1 Health and Safety Certificate, CSCS card, and a traffic marshal ticket. They then get access to a guaranteed job interview, and if everything's okay, they'll move forward onto a paid work trial for 10 days, and they'll get paid at a chain person rate, and then their rate improves. In the 3rd week, they're retained, and they'll move into work. So the reason I'm mentioning that is because the 14th programme and this current 15th programme is focused on women. So I had 5 women complete the first programme, of whom 4 have either moved into or are moving into work trials and in paid employment. And then I've got 11 women on my current programme, and they will be interviewed mid to end November, and they again will be matched to work trials. I went in to see them last week, and they're so enthusiastic and really engaged. And the other reason why I'm giving this programme as an example is extensively is always 60% BAME in terms of the candidates that start training and then come out at the other end. We also work so that's our hub, if you like, but we've also worked with spokes at City of Wolverhampton College, QTT, a private training provider based in Lichfield, not far from our Lichfield works, Birmingham Metropolitan College, where we've delivered programmes similar to that with, training, paid work trial, guaranteed job interview, for information management and document control vacancies, and also environmental technicians. I've got a video which is on the BBV LinkedIn page, also on my page on LinkedIn, which promotes roles on site for women. So we took that on as a real targeted approach this year. We are higher than the national averages in terms of women working on our project and women working on site. We are higher than the national averages. Apologies, I don't have those figures to hand, but I don't want to quote the wrong figures, but we can follow up with that information.
Well, that sounds great. I have to say the national average is so low that to go above it is probably not a fantastic move forward, but I appreciate that you are above the national average. Does that feed through to your apprenticeship scheme as well? Because clearly there are lots of roles, both in construction and other technical areas, where women might well be attracted. And are you attracting them by going into schools? Because it seems to me that if you want to attract women into non-typical roles, then you have to do it at a school level before they have preconceived ideas about perhaps where they might end up in terms of their career progression.
Absolutely, and some of the schools engagement work we do is with female school, girls' schools, and we follow that through into working age as well. So we run group information sessions for women at the local job centres. So with HS2, we've got 3 recruitment hubs set up, and we do regular events. We rotate events on a monthly basis. So every 3 weeks in a month, we're at these recruitment hubs. And then the 4th week could be a group information session. So I've delivered 3 women's sessions, for instance, over the last few months. Next week we're going in and we'll be at the Library of Birmingham, and we'll be encouraging graduates to come forward, engage with us and have a look at what roles are available. And then in a few weeks' time I'm going back in and doing a group information session for 50 plus. So I think the work around encouraging more women into roles, and site-based roles or apprenticeships as well, has kind of raised awareness. And that drumbeat continues, so that when we do mainstream programmes or send an advert out for an apprentice opportunity, that we get a more diverse applicant talent pool, and we positively market those opportunities at every opportunity.
Thanks. It would be nice to see the figures if you can provide them at some point. Thank you.
That's the end of the slide pack, isn't it, Sophia? David, did you want to come in?
So could I just ask, looking at the number of apprentices that we've taken on, what's the retention of apprentices like? I know from another place somewhere else, the retention of apprentices doesn't seem to be very good, because when they actually get into the job, it's not really quite what they wanted. So I wondered how we got on with the retention of apprentices. Also, you mentioned someone as one of your existing apprentices who'd got a degree, and I was wondering if it was a degree as part of his apprenticeship, where that degree was awarded. And also, I was very interested, as a committee, we went to have a look at the school for training operatives, which we were very, very impressed with. And I just wondered how that was performing. Thank you.
Sorry, I was just looking for the slide. For Joseph, who completed his degree apprenticeship. So the apprenticeships we offer are from level 2 up to level 7. And we do look at existing staff upskilling, as well as new entrants, and promoting opportunities for new entrants. Sorry, which site did you visit, did you say?
The Keltway, what's the name of the site? It's the Balfour Beatty Keltway site.
In what area?
It was based just off Junction 9. Obviously, we can't give the exact location.
So we do encourage our supply chain, and I was just with Reliable Contractors last week, who are based in Aston, and they've just launched a training academy. So a number of our supply chain do have their own training pathways and training academies, and we would absolutely look positively at some of those new entrants coming through those pathways. So they will be linked in.
Come back on the point of the training school that we visited. I think we were all incredibly impressed that we'd got digger operators that were operating to within a quarter of an inch of the design intention, and we thought that was incredibly impressive. And also I think what's impressive about modern machinery is that that can be operated equally by females and males. It isn't something which is a heavy physical role which would exclude women from that opportunity.
Whilst I'm not familiar with the Keltbray training facility, we do have, I understand what they're doing, and yes, you're right, that dexterity element means that driving those huge tonnage of machinery safely and within confined spaces is equally is a gender neutral opportunity. And again, we do have a case study from HS2 which we can share with you of a woman plant driver. And then also Balfour Beatty have got an operator skills hub set up. It's just in Sutton Coldfield, and that also provides training across our site. And I know Lynch have also recently launched an academy of providing similar training. And I think having the simulators, I don't know if you've ever sat on a simulator, it's a great experience. I did topple my digger over within the first 2 minutes of trying to, so my dexterity isn't great, but I believe that, you know, those youngsters and older people who play the video games, for instance, my brain can't control my hands and press different elements at the same time. I recently lost to my 5-year-old grandson on FIFA on PlayStation. So, but those individuals that can do that hand-eye coordination, those are definitely roles for them. And the simulators that we've got, the plant simulators, where you can sit on a chair and with the screens to train safely, is another element and another aspect of using digital technology to enhance the training experience.
I'd just like
if I may just come back quickly. One of the things that I thought when we visited the school and all the other training facilities that are going on within HS2, there seemed to be a tremendous opportunity for the apprentice scheme to conclude with a degree. And I suggested at the time that we were at the school that there may well be an opportunity, and I declare an interest here as a doctor of the Stafford University, that Stafford University would have been an ideal opportunity for HS2 to work together to have done degree courses at the end of your apprenticeships.
So the higher apprenticeships are through a degree. You study the degree programme, but you do it while you're working and earning. So they are still degree apprenticeships. So if there's another opportunity, a further opportunity to link in with Staffordshire University, we can take that away and we can look at that.
Before I bring Graham in, I just want to say, out of all those of us that visited the site off Junction 9 of the M42 and did the simulator training, only 2 of us remained on track, and I was one of them. And Graham was the other one. Graham.
Yes. You might have fallen off, but I got one of those dump trucks up to 50 mile an hour, which surprised David Keltbray. Anyway, but my question's really one for Sophia. I appreciate at the beginning of this that you don't have any news on the northern leg, but if things stay as they are, which in Staffordshire we hope that's what they will do, how will... I understood that the trains couldn't run on ordinary, on standard rail lines in the UK. So how will the, if the trains are now going to run up the West Coast Main Line from Rugeley, what differences will have to be made in the type of trains that are bought? I mean, is that all factored in? Are we changing the types of trains? Thank you.
To answer that question, the trains can run on the existing rail line, so they are set to the same standard gauge. However, they'll have to operate in conjunction with the existing railway, so they won't be able to travel at high speed. So I suppose the whole intent and purpose was to build a high-speed railway which is separate to the existing railway, so you could travel at high speeds and get to destinations quicker, cut congestion on the existing railway and ease the existing railway so that freight could be put on there. That now is not going to happen. If the scheme does go ahead, and well, it will go ahead and connect to the existing West Coast Main Line, HS2 trains will change over at Handsacre and link to the existing rail system, but they'll have to travel with the existing rail system, so that could mean that the rail system remains congested, really, and that's I suppose that's the main issue, but it's not something that HS2 can control.
But for people in particularly North Staffordshire and Central Staffordshire who perhaps go to London via Stoke or Stafford stations, will there still be a normal high-speed service, you know, the 125 service from Stoke and Stafford stations? Because if we have to travel to Birmingham to get a train to London, I can see that an awful lot of people will just drive.
Unfortunately, that's not a question that I can answer. HS2 will build the railway and hand it over to an operator. So we are currently in conversations with organisations such as the West Coast Partnership, who operate on that section of line, and they will dictate what the timetable of services will be. I'd hope that they would still offer the existing services rather than just opting to, well, suggest that passengers have to travel into Birmingham. But unfortunately, that's not and I can't answer that question right now because I'm not sure what the timetabling will be or what the services will be along that route.
If there are no further questions, then I'll thank Sophia and Cam and Matt, who's gone, for coming in today for the update, and we'll look at putting you into the agenda, into the work programme for another 6 months' time. Thank you very much for your time this morning.
Thank you.
And whilst the ladies pack up, we'll move swiftly on to item 5 and welcome Councillor Robert Pritchard and team to come forward. And we'll move swiftly on to item 5, which is the local transport plan update. Councillor Pritchard.
Thank you. This is a local transport update, and the report asks that the committee note the progress on the development of the local transport plan, including submission of the BSIP, the Bus Service Improvement Plan, review and comment on the completed engagement, the development of the evidence base and the capability to achieve sustainable transport profiles, seeks feedback to help shape the development and drafting of the LTP, ready for completion of the draft document in March 2025. The new LTP will be supported by a strong evidence base. Transport data reports have been circulated to all district borough councils, and we've published our Let's Talk Transport website, and this includes census and household travel survey data, traffic data, bus, rail, walking and cycling data. During 2024, we've carried out extensive engagement and the outcomes will be drawn together to inform the LTP. The report shows the extent of this engagement with various types of groups, and we've spoken to groups ranging from youth services, autism groups, as well as our regular and key stakeholders. Our Let's Talk Transport website is frequently being updated with information and surveys as we make a start to draft the individual chapters of the LTP. And it's the intention that they will be made available for comment for short periods of time with all stakeholders notified. Meeting the net zero greenhouse gas emissions by 2050 will be our greatest challenge in the LTP, and we need to consider how our current climate action plan could positively be enhanced to recognise the County Council's role in meeting our transport challenges, looking at the whole life carbon created by vehicle use and the infrastructure construction. So I'll just hand over to Annabelle, who's going to go through the individual aspects of the LTP.
Hi. So I just thought I'd just read through what you're likely to see in the local transport plan when it's published by March. So there'll be the vision, objectives and design principles up front in the document, and it will also summarise all the issues and opportunities that Staffordshire faces. And this will help to set out the baseline position upon which we need to set future targets and milestones for transport. The LTP will also include a combined sustainability impact assessment, which will be completed to ensure that we've considered the impact on health, communities, equality and the environment. Then the main section of the LTP will be split into different themes. So under each of the chapters, there'll be a programme of asks and schemes up for the period up to 2030, and then there'll be a long-term vision for up to 2050. So there are 9 key themes. So the first one will be about the need for behaviour change to sort of encompass all of our objectives. So because delivering the right schemes and projects, we need to understand why people make their travel choices and what are the barriers to change. So the infrastructure that we list in the LTP needs people to change their behaviour in terms of travel. And this chapter will explain the sort of revenue resources that we'll require to support a shift in travel behaviour. And it'll identify our asks of partners and government. We'll have a chapter on cross-boundary connectivity, and this will look at key movements in and out of Staffordshire, and we'll identify again our asks of our strategic transport partners, including national highways and the rail industry. And we'll also prioritise investment in our major road network, working closely with Midlands Connect at the regional level. There'll be a chapter on creating attractive, healthy, sustainable places. This will focus on our priorities for connectivity to and within our town centres and the public realm, and will also consider transport mitigation required to improve air quality. The biggest ask of our district and borough councils will be in this chapter to ensure that we have better land use and transport integration. This chapter will align with the emerging local plans and provide guidance on achieving sustainable new development, making reference to our emerging new highway design code for residential development. And it will also raise the importance of travel plans as a way of monitoring the traffic impact of new developments. We'll have a chapter on active and inclusive communities, and this will effectively be our summary of our emerging new local cycling and walking infrastructure plan. And that will be looking at 3 elements. It will be looking at walking, wheeling and cycling in our urban areas. It will be looking at our smaller settlements and what we can do in these smaller settlements, mainly for walking. And it will also look at our rural areas in terms of walking and cycling networks, including our rights of way. There'll be a chapter on public transport, which will be bus and rail combined. As you know, we've already have an approved bus service improvement plan. And this chapter will summarise that and explain the role of our rail network and integration between bus and rail. It'll also be looking at alternative options for areas that perhaps can't serve a fixed bus service. So we'll be thinking of new ideas such as mobility hubs, where you can potentially have a range of transport options all in one place, and that might be a better solution for some of our rural areas. We'll have a chapter on zero emission vehicles. This will focus on identifying the County Council's role in delivering the right EV infrastructure for Staffordshire and what our asks are for government. This will provide an update of our existing EV strategy, and it will also consider other forms of energy, for example, hydrogen. We're going to have a chapter on traffic and network management. So that is more about the existing issues on the network and how we manage the scale and pressures of traffic management and temporary traffic management, and how we prioritise our planned works on our network. We're going to have a chapter on highway maintenance and management. So this will be a summary of our existing highway improvement and asset management plan. And it will focus on identifying the resources required to maintain our highway asset. This chapter will also include any proposed major highway investment that we think is needed to support the objectives of the local transport plan. And we will also, in this chapter, be considering how we accommodate road freight movements. And finally, we'll be having a chapter on digital connectivity. And this will be basically the LTP recognising the importance of digital connectivity in reducing the need to travel and the use of technology to manage our highway network. So we've sort of, the engagement period is coming to an end, and we're now writing these chapters, and we have the Let's Talk Transport site that we are using basically to engage, and as these chapters are written, we'll be putting them on this engagement platform for people to have a look. So yes, that's probably it.
Thank you, Annabelle. Rob, anything else? No. Questions? Graham.
Thank you very much, Chair. In the objective section, which is in one of the appendices, objective 2, remove carbon emissions from local traffic and protect the natural environment. I think that needs to be split because they're not actually necessarily connected. There's a hell of a lot that goes into protecting the natural environment, including biodiversity and stuff like that. And it's really important that we recognise that as a separate, and removing carbon emissions is a statutory obligation, regardless of whether you think it's important or not. So there's something else, though, that I think we need a fifth one under. It's to do with public transport, and the less densely populated an area is, and the more elderly the population is, we have a disincentive to public transport, because bus operators only get about 40% of, if it's a £2 fare, they get 80p for somebody with an old person's pass. So in my division, for example, I've got an awful lot of really, well-retired people. And they do suffer because they've got to travel to the doctor quite a way. There are no doctors or in half of my patch. So there is something here about, if you look at somewhere like the centre of Manchester or London, particularly London, they've got a very viable public transport sector because of the density of the population. So I think we need to certainly have something. You don't have to come up with the answers, but I think in a viable transport plan, I think we should be talking about the things that we can't necessarily control, but that would make the public transport sector much more viable, and that is density of population. So in our population areas, a nice map that you've got there, Newcastle, so the centre of these places, centre of Newcastle, the centre of Stafford, we need a lot more denser low-rise or high-rise apartments, and that means that discourages cars, because if you're in a high-rise, it discourages cars, but a lot of people can walk locally to there, and they can get a bus, because the more people, the more attractive it is to bus operators. And remember, there are no publicly owned bus services in London. Every single one is a private one operating on routes given out. So I think you need something on that. And here's something that I found out only 2 weeks ago. The Republic of Ireland have just brought in a law saying that if they put a notice on a building or a site saying this is a derelict site, you've got 2 weeks to do something about it, otherwise it reverts to the state. And I think if we had that in Staffordshire, so when you come down the A34, just after the Ford garage, there's a disgusting building with all the windows punched out. That has been there ever since I've been in Stafford. It's an eyesore. And if we were able to put a notice on that, Staffordshire County Council, and say, you've got 2 weeks to refurbish this and start refurbishing it, otherwise it reverts to Staffordshire County Council, I think we would then be able to control our built environment far better than we do. So I urge the County Council to lobby government to have that power, because with that power you could have enormously better control about the built environment, and the built environment is what drives transport. Thank you very much.
Yeah, we got that. Thank you for that. We can take some of that on board and pass up the request in terms of lobbying the government. We have, as part of this, done a capability to achieve a sustainable transport assessment. So we've mapped out the county to look at areas where there is high population density and the ability to provide good public transport services, because it's not one solution fits the whole county. The county is so varied, very, very different population distributions. You've got everything from very dense towns through to very small hamlets, and we're going to, it's about trying to provide the most suitable options for those areas. Some of the points are ranging into sort of the local plan powers of local district councils, but we can raise that with our colleagues.
Charlotte?
Thank you, Chair. A couple of issues. First of all, on your cycling strategy, up until now, it's been very much about commuting between areas of population. What is the cycling strategy going to be doing to encourage local cycling, leisure cycling, cycling around children, cycling to school, etc.? So how is your cycling strategy going to be amended to encourage that local cycling? Because people don't start commuting from day one if they haven't started cycling previously.
Yeah, fully recognise that agenda, and we are looking at where our cycle network can be improved in areas where it can be used for all modes of transport. So it is the school journey, it is the commute, it is leisure. We're doing a piece of work looking at our more rural areas, and we're looking at the data in terms of where we could potentially have where the settlements that are joined for 2 kilometres, 5 kilometres and 8 kilometres for leisure. Previously in our bidding we've been restricted to what government requires us to do in terms of the data that's available, which is more about the journey to work and the journey to school. But I think Active Travel England, who sort of guide the funding, are becoming more appreciative of the need to look at all those other modes, including leisure. So completely agree that we shouldn't just be looking at the commute, because a lot of the commute now, people are working from home more, so that's helped to reduce people commuting. But it's finding those routes that are multi-purpose, basically, to get better value for money. We want to deliver those improvements where there are going to be more walkers and cyclists.
So how much of this is going to be actually in the local plan, or is this just an aspiration?
It's going to be in the Active and Inclusive Communities chapter. We'll be writing this in that chapter. And then there'll also be an updated local cycle walking infrastructure plan. The one at the moment that's on the internet is just focused on our 6 urban areas, but the new one is looking at our smaller towns and our rural areas. We're working very closely with Sustrans. We have Sustrans embedded in our team, and obviously they are focusing on the National Cycle Network. So their objectives are about active travel as well. So, you know, we're heavily engaged with Sustrans, and they sort of influence funding streams as well to support the National Cycle Network. So, completely agree.
Having cycled around Bristol with Sustrans, I know that they're also interested in local access and encouraging cycling to schools,
yeah,
and ensuring that the infrastructure in towns and cities are much more friendly to cyclists. But I want to move on to another issue. You identify wheeling as one of the issues, and I know, for instance, he's not a wheelchair user, but he is visually impaired and uses a guide dog, that he has actually been banned from certain parts of Leek because his dog trainer regards them as some areas of Leek to be so dangerous because the pavements direct him, the bobbled pavements direct him into danger rather than into safety. So what are you doing to make sure that where infrastructure is put into towns, that it is actually fit for purpose? Because this gentleman has now got an official complaint against the county council, which I'm supporting him with, because his ability to walk around Leek is impaired by the faulty infrastructure which is there. And also, of course, if you're a wheelchair user, and I should say that my daughter is a wheelchair user, that the absence of appropriate drop pavements, etc., also has a big impact. So what are you doing about consulting with disability groups of all sorts to ensure that you don't make the mistakes that you made some years ago in Leek in terms of the infrastructure, but also talking to wheelchair users and groups that deal with disability issues to ensure that you don't have, or don't create, danger for people with disabilities?
Recently, we have had engagement with guide dogs for blind. Our engineers took a blind lady on site to walk through the Chell Road scheme, and she identified where the issues were. Our AME engineers had a workshop a month ago that was specifically on that subject. So it is recognised that it's not all of our cycle schemes. It's getting a balance, isn't it? Trying to deliver something that's acceptable to all people in the community. I've had discussions with Active Travel England about what their views are on the potential conflicts between blind people and cycle infrastructure. So it's basically monitoring, engaging with them, and we have actually improved on our engagement with the blind.
Rob?
Yep. If you look at Appendix 3, it lists a number of groups we've engaged with, and that includes Guide Dogs for the Blind. But this whole project involves continual engagement. So we will be encouraging people to continue to engage with us on each stage of the development of the plan. If members think there's something missing or a group that's not engaging that should, direct them to the website, help them engage so we can gather their views to build them into the emerging plan.
My constituent is engaging with you via the complaints process, because I think it is worrying that you invest a lot of money into a town centre, and I don't think it is about balance. I think it's about getting it right, because I don't think actually if you get it right for people with disabilities that it impairs other people who haven't got disabilities to be able to walk around a town safely.
Yeah, but we're also doing a piece of work on with Sustrans about our barriers on our highway. The sort of gates that are on a lot of our off-road routes, and we're just sort of trying to sort of address that in terms of the Equality Act and trying to look at barriers that could potentially be removed to make sure that we have got better access to our off-road routes. But we've obviously got to bear in mind the reason why the barriers went in the first place, and it was often to do with antisocial behaviour. So we're engaging with communities on Newcastle Greenway, and we're about to remove 4 or 5 of the barriers on Newcastle Greenway to try and improve access for all. So we've started that piece of work as well.
Comment, I mean, I'm not talking about disability just in terms of cycling. I'm talking about disability overall within town centres.
Yeah.
It's not just a perceived conflict between cycling and disability. It's about ensuring that we have an area which is safe and easy to use for people who have got a range of disabilities.
Yeah, the barriers are obviously being removed to help all users. Yeah.
Councillor Smith, did you indicate? David?
Yep. Thank you, Chairman. 3 things, really. The first thing, I'm chairman of a neighbourhood plan group, and I'm one of 3 within Shenstone Parish. Can we look at some way where you can work with neighbourhood plans that are emerging? We've got a £10,000 government grant to prepare our neighbourhood plan. We're making assumptions about transport particularly that would be very much better if they had an input from the county. And so could I suggest that you make contact particularly with Shenstone Parish Council, but also with me, if you would, for my neighbourhood plan. The second thing is when we come to cycling in villages, and I represent several rural communities, I would not recommend cycling on any of our lanes. I think they're extremely dangerous. We have rat runners coming through at high speed, and until we deal with the rat running problem, I don't see how we can deal with the cycling situation. Could I also ask, I understand that we have available an interactive bus stop information panel system which would be self-liquidating in terms of cost. Are we looking at bringing that forward, and what sort of progress are we making? And the last thing, Chairman, if I may, is just to highlight that of our villages, 30% of the village population are over 65. And so when we start looking at the difficulties of shopping, I can't see how we're going to have over 65s travelling to supermarkets on buses and bringing their weekly shopping back again. And I think we have almost an insurmountable problem in that respect as far as rural communities are concerned. Thank you.
Thank you. A few points there. We'll try and cover them both. In going back to my earlier point about what's suitable for certain areas, obviously we're not trying to force solutions on areas. We're trying to encourage alternate. So, you know, for example, if a bus route isn't suitable for an area, that's not something we would be pushing. Equally cycling, but these are just the many themes that make up the overall plan. In terms of the sort of interactive signage at bus stops to show times, that's part of the bus service improvement plan. We've done an audit of all the bus stops in the county, and we've developed a plan on how we can improve those, and those sorts of schemes, those sorts of pieces of equipment are part of that, obviously subject to funding to pay for them.
Comment on neighbourhood plans. So, yes, we're the transport team at the county. We do get the opportunity to comment on neighbourhood plans. So then at that point we can then explain the LTP. We did do a parish council engagement event about a month ago, which was attended by 60 parish councillors, so they were informed about our local transport plan. So I think it's, you know, we're absolutely happy to get involved where we can on neighbourhood plans to make sure that the sort of the LTP and the neighbourhood plan complement each other.
Thanks for that, but just to particularly make the point that I'm not a parish councillor,
Right.
and I've not had any invitation to any event that would have dealt with that. If you could bear in mind that I'm chairing a scheme, we've got a £10,000 budget to put it together. It's got to be completed by next March, otherwise we lose our money. We're about half, three-quarters of the way through preparing that plan, and the input from you would be very, very valuable to that.
Yeah.
So if you could work with us on that, that would be very welcome.
Yeah.
Any further questions or comments? Connor?
I've probably said this before, but I'm going to mention it again. In the meeting that we had previously, we looked at the vision and the objectives, and I made the point that if a group of residents were probably going to look at these objectives and principles, they would say, why aren't you looking at reducing traffic congestion as part of your local transport plan? And that particular theme isn't clearly advocated within these this vision and these objectives. And the question is, how do we build that into the vision objectives? I mean, I'm very aware that, of course, having a net zero transport network is helpful in that you would shift people, hopefully, from vehicles onto cycling and walking, and that would hopefully reduce congestion. But in a population like Burton-on-Trent, which is growing at a quite astonishing rate, alongside its neighbour, South Derbyshire, which is one of the fastest growing areas by population, do we really think that we're going to address congestion issues by carrying out the objectives which is stated here? Or do we need to think about further road and highways infrastructure that might release or aid the congestion problems that we face within my local community? Is that really being looked at? Because I think it should be, if this is going to be politically achievable. Thank you.
Thank you for your question. So there's two themes in the plan. Themes 7 and 8 specifically look at highways, and many of those questions will be covered. I'm sure if the committee wants it to be really explicit, we can work that into the wording. But there's two bespoke themes just on highways, both infrastructure and the use of them, the capacity. You know, we've got issues coming down the road. For example, the number of bridges are reaching the end of their life. That will have a massive impact on local transport. So it's about pulling everything together so we can address all of the questions.
Connor, we've changed the vision slightly, because I remember your comment, and we've added in the word efficient. We didn't choose to put congestion in there, but we felt that adding in that word efficient sort of means that we are looking at how efficient our highway is and how we can manage the congestion on the network. So we did think about your comments, and we decided to add in the word efficient as a result.
Yeah, I mean, it's helpful. I need to properly think about how that changes the vision. I think there is a point around, perhaps in the objectives, where we talk about facilitating economic growth, perhaps just majoring on the point that we do also need to reflect the growing communities within our Staffordshire area. I mean, some communities are reducing in size and some are growing, and reflecting that so that we don't just, and my concern is that we allocate and spend and all of the money and all of our focus on pursuing the kind of net zero drive, which I'm a big fan of and I support, but we might therefore neglect some of the other things that we just need to do, which is to build the infrastructure we need to keep facilitating that economic growth in some of our areas. That's what I just would like to see weaved in a little bit more. We've got a while to do it. And of course, I'm only looking at a very short vision and short objectives, so the main local transport plan will be far more detailed, and I'm sure that will be included, but hopefully that just registers my concerns and views. Thank you.
Either of you want to come back? No. Philip?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So my urban division at Utoxeter has grown dramatically over the last few years. We've also got the A50 growth corridor that we need to look at. So a lot of the roads around my area are not fit for purpose now, but when they were actually built years ago. So we really need to look at the infrastructure that we've got in these urban areas, because the roads aren't fit for purpose. They are being broken up all the time by heavy lorries coming through. There are some junctions on the A50 that we started to look at, but I think those schemes may have been cancelled now with the change of government, so we need to look at that. But we need to look at as a whole as fit for purpose infrastructure, because at the moment it isn't.
David?
And just quickly picking up on the point which was made earlier on by Connor. The government has said, for example, to Lichfield District Council, and I expect to all the other borough councils and district councils in Staffordshire, that over and above what's been identified by the local needs analysis, we need to increase the number of housing, and in Lichfield District Council by 2,500. The leader of Lichfield District Council has made the point very, very clearly, and I 100% support it, that it should be infrastructure first. You can't put all of these houses in and just expect them to manage on the existing infrastructure. And so somehow we've got to look to the government to fund major road improvements to be able to accommodate what they are imposing on us in terms of additional housing over what our local communities feel is the essential needs. Chairman.
Thank you. Sort of pick up a couple of points on roads. County Council is very much aware of the need to deliver the correct infrastructure. We have a role through that through planning. The authority's been lucky enough to receive LUF funding and other projects where we've been able to invest money in pinch point infrastructure around the county. A number of those projects are being delivered. We'd like a lot more. We were looking to develop proposals to spend the summer money committed by the previous government through the HS2 funding. We're hoping that money remains in place, because that's a significant amount of capital for highways, and it's not just about fixing the roads, it's about improving the road network. So, we hope we will still get that money, because these are the sorts of things we'd look to use it for.
Nobody else? Whilst I take on board what everybody has said today, I think the the local transport plan paper is a positive paper. There's a lot of hard work gone into it. Yes, it's still emerging and we've got other things that we need to put in it. But on the whole, I think it's a real positive piece of work that's gone into it so far. I do have some issues around cycling and walking, especially around schools, and how we protect pedestrians when there's no safety barriers and things like that. Although safety barriers do have their issues because then there's less pavement for them to walk on. But thus far, I think it's a good report, it's a good paper, and we've done a lot of hard work to get it to where it is. So thank you for that. If there's no further comments or questions, we've got 3 recommendations. I'm not going to use the word no to the progress because I hate that word. I think we've looked at the progress and we've looked at the emerging plan, so we can not use the word no because you're assuming that everybody has read the paper and noted it. Review and comment on the engagement done to date. Well, I think we've raised any concerns that we have of missed groups if there were any, and Councillor Pritchard has told us where we need to look for those. And review and comment on the approach to developing the cast evidence-based. I think that's been mentioned and we've done that as well. So if there are no further comments or questions, can we move those 3 recommendations en bloc? Yeah. Thank you, David. Thank you, Graham. And thank Councillor Pritchard, Annabelle and Darryl for their attendance this morning. You're free to leave. And we'll move swiftly on to item 6, which is the work programme. Jacob.
Thank you, Chair. To update and confirm the items for the next meeting in November, there will be 4 items, including people not in education, employment or training, the community learning self-assessment reports, the employment and skill strategy, and the digital annual report. In addition to that, I'd like to provide a work programme update in terms of changes to the work programme since September, to include the waste infrastructure plan, which is now the work programme item for the 27th of March 2025, the library's investment in library services, which will now be a work programme item for the next municipal year, the annual report of Staffordshire and Stoke-on-Trent Joint Archives, which is now an item for the 27th of February 2025, the History Centre update, which is a work programme item also for the 27th of February 2025, and the National Highways update on major projects, which was moved from the previous meeting in September and will now occur on the 30th of January 2025.
Thanks, Jacob. For the 21st of November meeting, I will be in sunnier climates, so Peter will be the chair for that meeting, so please bear with him while he chairs you lot and looks after you all. I don't think we've got anything else. We haven't. The date of the next meeting, obviously the 21st of November. Item 8, we haven't got anything in confidential, so there's no exclusion of the public. So I'll close the meeting at 11:40 we'll go for. And thank you all for your attendance this morning. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman.